you
now.
are. There you are. She had to reveal. She had to get the big reveal.
No, because I have something on my camera, you know, I'm always on the safe side with my technological equipment, so that's why.
Oh, tell me about that. Maybe I should be on the safe side.
Like, you know, through cameras, they watch everything. I mean, they hear everything anyway, but I don't like my camera to be like, you know, visible because they can hack into it like really easily.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay. So you said they watch everything, they hear everything, and they can hack everything. Then who is they?
You know, like the government.
Oh, okay. Okay,
You know,
okay.
like when you're sitting on your phone and you're just looking at stuff. I don't want
Hmm.
anyone looking at me, you know, from the other side. So yeah.
Totally understandable. Have you ever run into, problems of that nature, like where you felt like, okay, somebody's hacking into my devices here?
Oh, I have that like very frequently. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, very frequently.
How does it happen? How does it happen to you?
Um, like as soon as I talk about certain things, then sometimes I can get like threatening messages or threatening emails about the knowledge that I'm spreading and so forth. So yeah.
Threatening.
Yeah, yeah, like I'm shadow banned. I've been shadow banned for a very long time as well, and especially after I do certain messages, I get like super attacked after the messages. I mean, they can't do anything. We're all divinely protected, but still I try to be as much on the safe side as possible, and I don't want my footage to be sold. I know they do that as well. They hack in and then they sell the information. So yeah.
I can definitely relate, Natalie. I've been shadow banned before as well. I might still be shadow banned. I don't even know if I am,
I think you
but there were like,
are. I think you
yeah,
are.
I might be. I'm probably still shadow banned because I remember I was talking about, different topics, fasting and, just the medicine of the body. The body's the great healer and the revealer. And I remember, I was just putting up stuff and then, yeah, they just, they banned me. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
people started following me because I was banned. They were like, you're banned, so you must know what you're talking about if they banned you.
Exactly. That's a really good meter to go. Like, who's shadow banned? Let's follow them. Let's listen to what they're advising to do.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow. How are you, Natalie? How are you today? How is your day flowing? How is your energy going?
yeah. No, I'm good. I think the energy is a bit. I don't know. It's a bit low and a bit disorientating. It's like a lot going on, but then nothing going on at the same time. I feel.
Okay.
But in my personal energy, I feel great. I did feel a bit. I don't know. We had this fog here in Sweden.
Mm.
And they have this parasitic organism in this fog, and I was really feeling the effects of it. So I've been feeling a bit like flu symptomy.
Oh,
And
wow.
every time we've had this fog here in Sweden, I felt the same thing. So yeah, it's another way of attacking us. So
Oh, wow. And I didn't even know you were in Sweden. I have family in
oh,
Gothenburg
really?
and
Cool,
Stockholm.
cool, cool.
Yeah, yeah. I was in Sweden for a little while, just visiting some family at one point, but I didn't know the parasitic fog. Can you talk about this? You said there's a parasite in the fog?
Yeah, parasitic organism together with nanotechnology to alter our state of being. And this is like a biological weapon from the military that they've been using. And it's been all over the world. It's thousands of people that's been reporting of it, and many people have taken um, samples from this fog, and we can clearly see that is parasitic organisms together with nanotechnology. And this is not a newly developed weapon. It's been around for already in the 40s, 60s, they were using it.
Whoa. Okay, so you'll just have to excuse my ignorance, just excuse my ignorance because I don't have a television, like I don't get TV, I don't watch the
Well, I don't
news,
watch
I
TV
haven't watched the news.
either.
Say again?
I don't watch TV either. These won't be on the news, so I mean,
Okay, Yeah, so I'm very out of the loop when it comes to, you know, these things that are happening, the comings and goings of the world. So I kind of get my news and my information within the conversation,
No,
you know, within
that's the best
communication
way.
as we share the vibration. So when you're talking about this nanotech and that, you know, it's commonly known and it's widespread, like what is just a few more things you can say on this topic? Because this is the first time I've ever heard of this. Yeah.
I mean, everything that we're going through right now, it all comes down to the parasites. I mean, the parasites alters our way of thinking and it alters our mood state, and the lower our vibration becomes through these parasitic entities, the more they are able to control us. So they want to spread as much parasitic organisms as possible so that people can be as controlled as possible. This is why it's so incredibly important to cleanse our physical vessel from these parasitic entities. I mean, demons cannot control a human vessel without there being parasites. So it all comes down to parasitic organisms, and the way we eradicate them is through prayer and fasting. Even in the Bible, it talks about it in, where is it? Matthew 17:21. Most of the Bibles, it has been taken out, but there it clearly talks about how important it is to fast and to eradicate all of the parasitic organisms from our physical vessel for us to be able to function as best as we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, usually I hear about this when it comes to, you know, food, when it comes to, you know, different things that we eat and that we consume, that we're giving
Mm.
room to these things that are out of tune. You know, we're
Yeah.
giving more room to what we consume. So, you know, we're allowing it to blossom and bloom when we consume, you know?
Mm.
So when you're talking about these types of organisms, it seems to be, well, are they just the same? They the same as the ones we eat, as the ones we're breathing in, like airborne parasites? Are they on the same
I,
spectrum?
I would say so. I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. And when did you go ahead?
No, no, go. I
When did
wasn't
you
going to say
realize,
anything.
when did you realize, Natalie, that, you know, maybe these organisms had been taking control? Or had you ever, can you recall a time in your life where you felt more subjugated or more under the control of something else, something sinister like this?
Well, maybe not personally, but what I witness in people around me, like I've had quite a lot of experience in the field of narcissism, and many people talk about narcissism cannot be cured, and likewise with psychopathy, but I do disagree. I think it all comes down to parasitic entities that has taken over their host and it's fully controlling their mind. And I mean, again, with psychopathy and narcissism, all of these people are full of parasites, and this is why they are acting the way they are acting, and it fully controls the way they think, the way they act. They are not really in the driving seat of their vessel. They are in the passenger seat, and they are letting the parasite demon take over all of their actions.
Okay. Okay. This is amazing. You know, Natalie, this is deja vu. I'm getting deja vu right now
Yeah,
because
cool.
just yesterday, literally just yesterday, we had a conversation with a professor. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Professor Spira, and he's very big into, you know, Arnold Ehret and the mucusless diet. And he literally said, Natalie,
Oh yeah,
the
you had him
same.
on your.
Say it
Sorry,
again?
sorry, I did. No, I saw him on your story, right? You had a
Yes.
few. Yeah,
We
that's him. Yeah, cool.
we just had him on here yesterday, and he said the same thing
Oh,
about
really?
psychopathy.
Yeah.
About psychopathy, he said, you know, a lot of people, you can't come at them with, you know, with logic and empathy because you're dealing with psychopaths. And I said, wait a minute, what? Like that was the first time. It was just like a slap in the face. Like you got to know your audience, you know who you're dealing with. You're dealing with psychopaths. I said, wait, say that again. You know, he said, yeah. You know, if he said, the pus and mucus based reality. That's what he called it.
Mm,
You know, when we're consuming pus and mucus based, you know, some people they're fruit based, some
yeah,
people they're plant based. He calls this pus and mucus based. You know,
I
that this
agree.
is the basis of, you know, all of these places and all of these spaces in all of these spaces. So it's just very interesting psychopathy and just understanding how something can tap into the nervous system and influence your feelings, your emotions, your mood swings, you know?
Exactly.
So you've never felt the influence of this, like to the level where you had to do a parasite cleanse? You never felt anything like that?
I did many years ago, but I didn't understand that it was parasites that were altering my way of thinking. Now, recently, I'm constantly almost doing parasite cleanses because of the pollution in the air. Even if I
Right.
don't really eat much physical food, I am still unfortunately breathing this contaminated air that we are being provided with. So I think it's really important, even if you are a fruitarian or almost a breatharian, to still do these parasite cleanses, because unfortunately our environment is incredibly toxic on so many different levels, the water, the air. So even if you are taking care of what you are putting into your mouth with the food, it's still going to affect you in some way. If you live in those areas, if you live in the cities, fine. If you live by yourself out in the forest, it will be much cleaner air, but they spray on top of the cities frequently, so it's no really any way of getting around it. So it's really important to still take your herbs that do cleanse the parasites so that they cannot hatch on to your organs.
Okay. And I feel I do know what you mean when you're talking about spraying. Well, it brings to mind like different times where I've heard about chemtrails and I've seen, you
Exactly.
know, I've seen aircraft going over with those jet streams and it's like, you know, just streaks across the sky and there's like these strange clouds that don't look like clouds. Like they're not really clouds.
Yeah,
So,
no.
yeah. So this is really, I mean, it's just sinister when you think about it.
Oh,
And
it
as
is.
well as you're talking, Natalie, as you're speaking, when you said that there was a time before in your life where it did demand that detox, it did
Mm.
demand you to deep dive into your vessel and to release these organisms that you had no idea they were parasites at the time that were in control. What can you tell us about what Natalie looked like before? Like, what was your diet like? What was your lifestyle like? And then what brought about the great change to who we're looking at now?
Well, I was a professional dancer before, so I've always been very athletic and taking care of my body in a way, but I was also a drug addict. I was a drug addict for almost 8 years. So I
Okay.
was using drugs daily. So I
Mhm.
mean, in that aspect, I was not taking care of my body whatsoever. And I was eating really unhealthy as well.
Mm.
I think even throughout those years, I was really into detoxing. Even then, I was like doing cocaine and then I was doing detoxing at the same time. So it was really contradicting. But I think because I did that, even though I wasn't taking care of my physical health, I was eating unhealthy, but I was already always into herbs. And I think with that, I was not being as contaminated as someone that was not at all into detox and herbs and all of that.
Mhm.
Um, and my addiction just came to a point where I was so sick and I was in chronic pain and I was chronically depressed. I had so much anxiety
Mm.
and I just came to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I've always been in contact with my spirit
Right.
team already from like a very young age. But during my years in addiction, that went away. But I had
Mm.
this one night where they came back and they were like, I used to live in Paris before, and they were like, you have like 24 hours to get out of Paris because otherwise you will die. So I basically like just left my old job and I left Paris within like a few days because I knew if I stay in Paris, I will literally die. So that change like brought about like this old spiritual awakening. Even if I was spiritually aware already as a child, I had a really big spiritual awakening after I had that experience with my spirit team, like coming in physical form, and was like, you have to stop this if you want to survive. So
Right.
after that, I just did everything that they told me to do, and I really got into my spiritual path. And all of the attention that I used to focus on my addiction, I started focusing on my spiritual path instead.
Mm.
So yeah, I was very unhealthy before.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing. Like, I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm glad you're still here, Natalie, and that, you chose a different timeline. You chose a different path. You chose a different reality.
Oh yeah.
You were like, you chose, you're like, no, I'm not going down this. There was a crossroads. And it sounds like, your spirit team, your spirit guides, it's like they gave you an ultimatum.
Oh,
They gave you like,
exactly.
this is it. This is all you got. If you don't leave now, you're not leaving, you know?
Mm.
So, oh my goodness, what was it like, if you can recall, in that moment? You said they came to you in physical form. Do you remember what they looked like?
Well, I was like on my balcony in Paris, and I was just like crying so much, and I like couldn't take it anymore. Like I wanted to jump down, but I think that's why they came, because they didn't want me to jump.
Mhm.
And I just had them like on either side of me, and they were just this really powerful
Mm,
presence of light.
mm,
And I knew what it was because I had experienced them as a child. So I knew, okay, that's my spirit team. That's my guides that are here to. So I wasn't afraid. It wasn't intimidating feeling whatsoever. I was just like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is my spirit team contacting me. And even though for the years before that, I hadn't had any like spiritual practices or anything like that, but because of my childhood that was so vivid with spiritual experiences, I knew exactly what it was. So yeah.
It's very interesting just listening to you, because when you're talking about, spirit guides, we hear about like the spirit guides, the ancestors, angels, angelic beings, galactic beings, like different beings that are here, that are, benevolent and not always malevolent. Like they have a reason and a purpose, and they're in service. But it seems like also, when these situations arise, I'm wondering your opinion on what are the times like when they step in. Some people, they say that they have to be given permission, or they wait on permission. They can't step in unless you ask, and then you'll receive. Like, ask and then it is given. But then there's other people that, they're praying all day long, they're hoping all day long, they're wishing all day long, and they don't see any guides, they don't see any angels, they don't feel any presence. What would you say is the difference?
I do know that if you hold fear in your body, they will not show themselves because you cannot handle it.
Hmm.
So even if you might think that you can handle it, the density of the light of this being, it's so intense that even if you are praying for it, when it will manifest in your 3D reality, it will be too much, and they know this. So they will not show themselves. I think in my case, it was because I had already experienced a lot in the spiritual world as a child, and I saw many things, so they knew that I will know what it's about. And I think as well, it was such a crucial time for them to step in,
Mhm.
because if I didn't leave Paris, then I would have stayed, and then I would never get onto my spiritual path. And I have a message to share with the world. So it was kind of a critical thing, not just for me, but for the higher realms as well, to step in and to put me on another path. This was around COVID time, so many people had intense spiritual experiences during this time because it was such a crucial time in taking that step into a higher timeline.
Okay. And I'm glad they did. You know, when you're seeing them step in like that and just, you know, giving that last chance, because, you know, so many people talk about those near death experiences and where they went to the other side and, you know, they saw something that they never saw before, and when they came back, it it changed their whole, you know, reality based on what they thought that life was, that they realized, oh, it's not what I thought it was at all.
Mm.
So how did this really change and reframe the way that you see the world as it is, the way that you see life as it is? Because like you said, the density of the light, you know, I like this because in your bio it says light warrior,
Yeah.
you know, that you're a warrior of the light, so you can handle that density, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think during my years in addiction, I did have several overdoses and I died a few times. But it still, it didn't scare me. It didn't shock me into taking another path because I think I was so disconnected that I didn't understand the severity of it, and I didn't really care about life, so I wasn't like scared about my near death experiences, and I didn't have any beings that came to me after those times. So I just think that when I had this experience there on the balcony in Paris, it was just the right time for them to step in to guide me to a higher timeline, because in the past I didn't really care. One time I was in this ambulance and my heart had stopped. I had taken an overdose, and they told my partner at the time, they were like, if she doesn't wake up now, she will like suffer great brain damage and she might not even wake up. And they drove me to the hospital, and I was awake before we got into the hospital, and I just like walked out of the ambulance. I didn't get checked. I didn't get anything because I was like, oh, it's fine. I'm like, what is the big deal about? I was so disconnected from the reality and what I was actually doing that I just like went along and, you know, just like continued. I didn't understand the severity of the situation.
Oh my God. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So, okay, wow. Wow. I just got flashbacks. You know, I've I've watched a few documentaries on this. Like I haven't, you know, experienced firsthand overdose,
Mm.
but I've seen people's story when they talk about their battle with, you know, things like fentanyl, you know about fentanyl.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember seeing a woman, and you know she was in her 30s. She was completely unrecognizable from who she was before, and she was
Mm.
living on the street. And they said that they had already revived her like 11 times, like 10 or 11 times she had overdosed, and they had the Narcan ready for the next time. And you know, the guy asked her, he said, if you know that the next time you use that this could be the last time, and she said she didn't care because the withdrawal effects, she said the withdrawals from being
It's
off of
so bad.
the, say again?
It's so bad, the withdrawal. This is why people stay in it, because they don't want to go through the withdrawal, especially with fentanyl. I haven't used fentanyl personally, but I did use heroin. And it's the same with heroin. When you go off heroin, like you get sick, like you get physically sick. Like it's, you know, like flu symptoms time a million. You
Mm.
feel like your bones are like cracking from the inside, and you know, you can't control what goes in and what comes out each end. It's so terrible, and this is a big reason why people stay in addiction, because they are not ready to go through the detoxification period before it gets better. Like it's going to get much worse in that detox period. It was the same with me. I my problem was cocaine, not heroin, but when I stopped cocaine, cocaine is more mental, but I had a few, maybe like 2 years after I stopped,
Mm.
that's when my body started purging and detoxifying, and
Mm.
I got like sick again. And I was like, why did no one tell me about this? Like, why did no one tell me that it's after 2 or 3 years that your body actually start releasing the toxins off all of the substances that you have been abusing. And I'm still, to this day, I don't think people talk about it enough, that the detoxification process is so complex and it takes years and years before, because there's so many layers to it. I mean, even today, like, I haven't used for years, but I know that sometimes when I do intense detox and I get sick, and I know many of the toxins that's come out of me, it's still from my years in addiction, because it's gone into the tissue of many of the organs, especially the
Wow.
liver, and that takes a lot of years before it's really purified.
Wow. So it was over 1 year. It took 2 to 3 years for you to finally
3 years.
start releasing like the issues that were deep in the tissues, like for them to finally start to relinquish and flow out. It was 2 to 3 years
Yeah,
of not using for them to finally start.
exactly.
Okay. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So what would you say, because I've never done cocaine, there's been people around me that I've done it. I've been in jobs where I've witnessed people using it, but I've never been tempted. But what was the initial attraction that pulled you to it? And it sounds like different from the withdrawal symptoms of something like fentanyl and heroin, that this was more, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there was depression for the reason why, like maybe the low so low that you didn't care about stopping, or was it, I'm just wondering, in your case, what was the initial draw, the pull, the attraction? And then why you couldn't let it go for so long? Was it because of the depression versus someone else's case?
Like, I fully believe that before we come here, we program our own life. We program circumstances, we program experiences to be able to evolve as much as possible on a soul level. And I think I programmed myself to be drawn to drugs. I was really young. I think the movie's called Cruel Intentions or something, and she has this cross with cocaine in it.
Mm.
And I was really fascinated with that piece of jewelry. And I think I was 14, and I got a similar little pendant. And I was like, I'm going to fill this up with cocaine. And I was like so young. And already there, I just had this fascination with drugs. And to my understanding today, drugs, or when we go into a drug addiction, we go into it to experience the frequency and the vibration of that drug. So
Mm.
we actually do research to be able to then use that all that darkness we then accumulate, and we bring that into the light. So I think I program myself to go through the addiction, to go through that intense darkness that addiction comes with, because the
Mm.
people that haven't gone through addiction, you can't even begin to understand the darkness of it. It is so dark, and it is a entity controlling you,
Mm.
uh, in a way, and it just gets worse and worse. The deeper you go into the addiction, the more depressed you become, the more anxiety you have, and then you have the shame around it, because you do want to stop,
Right.
but then you try to stop and then you fail, and then you feel shame and guilt because of that. So it's just this vicious cycle
Yeah.
that, like, that's never ending, and you just have to come to a point where you can't take it anymore. And I watch many of these fentanyl stories on the street, where people go around and offering people to go into rehab, and they're like, I'm not ready, I want to go, but I am not ready.
Mm.
And I think in addiction, you just have to be ready to
Mm.
stop your own addiction. If you are not ready, you will not stop.
Right.
And I remember when I was in my addiction, there were so many times I wanted to stop, but it was really hard for me to imagine a life without drugs. I was like, oh yeah, I can just do it like on the
Right.
weekends, because it was so hard for me to let go drugs altogether, because it was like a part of my identity. It was like my everything. Everything like was around my drugs. I
Mm.
didn't really care about anything else. So it just came to a point where I couldn't take the pain anymore, and I just knew I had to like give it up. It was ruining my body, it was ruining everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Natalie, thank you just for your vulnerability. Like thank you for your openness. Thank you just for just letting us into your world and into your mind, into your heart space, letting us into your just in- into that world where someone is so deeply entrenched and so deeply enraptured and so deeply captured by something that it's like it has its claws in you. The only way that I can really relate was with food addiction. That was the same thing with me when it came to, there was a period of time, and I had never, or seemingly never, had problems before, years ago, with like binging and purging and, stuffing myself with food, until this time after a long fast. So I started fasting and I started letting go and I started detoxing and I started feeling clean and clear and cognizant, and everything was just up leveling in my life. And then once I reintroduced food back into my body, I went crazy, and it happened from the guilt and the shame of, my parents calling me on three-way and having an intervention saying, you look like your body is eating itself, you look skinny, you look weak, you're killing yourself, please eat something. And I wasn't ready for that negative energy. Once I went back into food full blown after a long dry fast, like 2 weeks dry fasting, I went into a downward spiral, and I was in and out of restaurants. I was in and out of, food stands, food trucks, convenience stores, gas stations, grocery stores. Like I would just go in and out, and then I'd purge, and then I would go eat again, and then I'd purge and then go eat again. And I just watched the energy transfer of, the money going from my wallet to the food to the garbage or to the toilet. Like I saw the transfer of energy, and it just happened so many times where I was looking at myself in the mirror like, who are you? This is not you. This is not who you are. And there was so much guilt and shame surrounding it, because it's like guilt says, I did a bad thing, but shame says I am a bad person, you know?
yeah.
So how does somebody who's going through an addiction like that, whether it be, cocaine, MDMA, heroin, or even food, how do you feel like is the best way for someone to start breaking out of that pattern? Like, what does somebody have to do?
I think the easiest thing is to change what you do in your everyday life. It's like with cognitive behavior therapy, which I think is really good, that you go in and you change the way that you structure your day instead of focusing on the addiction. It's when we start focusing on the addiction, we build up so much anxiety around it, like, oh my God, I have to get clean, I need to stop doing this. And when we do that, we kind of take 10 steps back instead of going forward, because there's so much intensity around doing the right thing. But if we instead we start exercising, we start taking better care of ourselves, in the end you will not want to do those toxic things because they're making you feel like shit. They will of course still happen in the beginning, but the more clear you get and the more active you are, you go for a long walk, you do some breathing exercises, you introduce small things like that, and because of your being able to process your energies better, because you are in a better state of mind, you will be able to catch yourself before you go into that loop into your addiction,
Right.
because you are feeling better. So I think it's really important to not focus on, oh, I need to stop this or that, and instead go in and change your behavior in your everyday life, and like that slowly it will fall away.
Yes, that makes sense. It makes sense. It's like instead of focusing your energy, because they say what we focus on expands,
Yeah,
like whatever you focus on the longest grows the strongest. So if we're
Exactly.
focusing on the addiction, then the addiction is still growing because that's our focus. But if we
Yeah.
focus on, oh, well, new habits, like, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to live? How do I want to feel? Where do I want to go? How do I want to be? Focus on, these positive things, then it's like we're slowly going in that direction
Yeah,
instead of trying to
exactly.
avoid, because it's like if we keep resisting, it'll keep on persisting. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. Like I see this, I'm not going to meetings anymore, but I did have a short period where I went to meetings just to, hear other stories. It's really refreshing to hear what others are go through, and through sharing your experience as well, it also helps you. But what I noticed, especially in NA, is that many people that have been clean for 15, 20 years, they still have a trigger. They still can't be in a room where there's cocaine in front of them. And if you get triggered, you have not solved the root cause of your addiction. Because if you solve the root cause of your addiction, you don't care if there's drugs around you. Like me, I couldn't care less if I had cocaine in front of me now. Like there's not a single cell in my body that urges me to ever use again. It's because I have completely dissolved the root cause of my trauma that was connected to my addiction. And I think it's a really crucial part in the 12-step program to introduce the 13th step, that we have to go into the root cause of our addiction, because if not, we will sit there in meetings and still have a trigger even though we've been clean for 15, 20 years.
Right, right.
Yeah.
This is tremendous, great advice, great advice. And they're saying, as well, they're echoing that and saying, like, thank you for this advice, because you're right, Natalie. In order to change the fruit, we gotta change the root,
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
gotta get to the root cause, the root of the problem. So, oh my goodness, when you're talking about like these exercises as well, I know you have so many wonderful and methods and modalities now, and one of them I know is qigong.
Yeah.
And I saw you doing a qigong posture. You were rooted in this horse stance. It was like boom, like you were down there in a deep deep horse stance. So how long has qigong been something that has been nourishing and flourishing in your life?
Well, really, like not that long, because I realized that I've been doing Qigong without really reflecting over that I'm doing Qigong. Because as a ballet dancer, I'm a trained classical dancer, and you use the movement, you breathe in and you use the breath to go into the movement. And that's kind of what Qigong is all about. You're moving the energy, you're using your breath, and you taking in the life force energy. So I think with a classically trained background, it was really already there with me, and I was using the movement. And then I stopped dancing, but I still do a lot of my own dancing at home to just, relax the body. And I realized that I've actually been doing Qigong, and then because I do a lot of energy work as well, it is really helpful to get that life force energy into you through the Qigong practices. So it's through the dancing bit that introduced me into the Qigong bit. So yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that answer. And I love how just frank and sincere, just how real you are with it. You're just like, I was already doing it, I didn't know the terminology. I didn't know the what it was called, but I was already working with energy. I was already moving my body. I was already improving my body with that flow of energy. Because I mean, when you think about it, Qigong is a relatively new term in the grand
Yeah,
scheme of things. I mean, back when they were doing Qigong, they didn't call it Qigong.
yeah,
It wasn't called Qigong.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. So many of the ancient practices that we do, we don't really need to put a word to it because
Right.
it's already programmed in us. We remember many of the things that we used to do in past life, especially when you go on your spiritual path and you start unlocking those aspects of yourself that you have experienced in past life, and you start taking it into this life. I think that's really important to, instead of being so focused on doing this retreat or I need to read this, it's much more important to remember what you already know. What does your soul already know? What have you gone through as a soul? We just have to remember. We don't have to do all of these things outside of ourselves. We just have to sit in meditation and remember. And that's as easy as it is.
Oh my gosh. It's like you don't have to focus on what you have to learn. You said you had to remember what you already
Exactly.
know. That is
It's
so
all about
powerful.
remembering.
Yeah, the
We come here
remembering.
to remember.
Hmm.
We come here to remember. That's what it's all about. So,
Yeah,
and you already have all the knowledge within you. It's just about quieting down your mind and being centered, and then you can take in the knowledge that you already know within your heart and your soul.
right. When it came to, your lifestyle now, because earlier you briefly mentioned that you hardly eat today. If you consume it all, it's hardly. So
Mm.
what is your lifestyle? What is your lifestyle now when it comes to food? Like, what is your relationship or your dynamic with diet, as people call it?
My goal is to completely be breatharian
Mm,
rather soon, because I do think that we don't need food. If we need food when you are operating from your three lower chakras, you are not getting the energy flow from above and below if you do not have your chakras open. But if they are open, the life force energy is continuously moving through you from above and below. And if you have centered yourself and there is sunshine, you will not really need any food because you're getting the life force energy from the universe. But of course, it takes a lot of time. Your body has to go through several stages before you can actually sustain yourself on only breathing. But the end goal for us to transcend is to become breatharians. That is how we will transcend and ascend as a human species. So
this is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is like music to my ears. You know, I just listening. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're living in these times. I'm just blown away that I'm living in these times. That we're living in these times. I'm like, I just feel so. I feel so blessed. I feel so
yeah,
blessed that we're
it's
just
finally
coming into
here.
this. Say
It,
again.
it's finally here, I think,
Right.
because like even last year we were not really in the same energy that we are now. Now we are in a completely new reality. We have been provided with completely new energies, and we are really in the time that we've been waiting for such a long time. I don't know about you, but I've been waiting to live in this moment when we are speaking freely about these things and more people are opening up to the metaphysical aspect of our reality.
Right, right. So, Natalie, when did you come in contact with this awareness, with this wavelength, with this frequency of food freedom, with this frequency of, just being completely autonomous, just the autonomy of breatharianism, of chronic living, of the energy that's always giving. When did you come into this awareness? Was there some form of inspiration or like yeah, where did it come?
I left Paris, came to
Mhm.
Sweden, and I started meditating a lot. And I've always been like very, very extreme. And like I said, all of the energy that I was putting into my addiction, I focused it into my spiritual practices. So when I started meditating, I'm not advising anyone to do this, but I did start with, like 6 to 12 hour meditations. And because I'm classically trained, I was used to being in a lot of pain. So I could push myself to sit for very extensive amount of time in meditation. So I think during a year there in the beginning, I started unlocking so much so quickly, and I got all of this information, and many of the information I started applying way too quickly, like with barely eating any food. But my body was not ready to eat in that way because I had still not unlocked or stabilized my chakras. And if you have not done that, this is why in veganism so many people get so sick, because you cannot sustain yourself on a vegan diet if you are operating from your three lower chakras. You will not get the nutrition that you need. You will not get the life force energy that you need from the food because you're still operating from your three lower chakras. So I started eating basically only fruit and juice, and I got so sick. I got so sick. So I think I had to go through that, and I had to realize, like, first-handedly, that to be able to do this, you have to slowly introduce certain things, because when you dive deep into spirituality, it's a dangerous world if you do it too quickly and you don't really know what you're doing. I was connected to my guides, so they were guiding me quite a lot of how to do it and what to do. But like I said, I did get very sick when I went on a juice diet the first time, because my body was not ready for that. And it's kind of in the same time when I got sick from the juice diet, that's when I started detoxing as well. So I was going through so much at the same time, and meditating so much, opening up to so many things. And it takes time to integrate everything. It takes years to integrate all of these energies. It's like when you do a plant medicine ceremony afterwards, it takes weeks before you can actually integrate all of the intense experiences, messages that you might have received throughout your plant medicine experience. So it's the same with all spiritual practices. When you meditate intensely for, we say, 6 months, after that you should take a break because you need time to integrate everything.
This is
So,
true.
yeah, so it's been a slow process of getting into and being able to sustain myself on very little physical food.
Yeah.
So,
Slow and
yeah,
steady. Slow and
yeah,
steady. You know, slowly is the quickest way for sure. I definitely agree with you. And I tell people the same things, Natalie. You know, there's no need to rush. You know,
exactly.
there's there's no rush. You know, even rushing, you know, when people stumble, when they rush, and then when they fall, sometimes they don't want to get back up. You know,
Yeah,
they don't want to do it again, because now it's almost like they've developed a trauma surrounding, you know, the surrender,
exactly.
you know, surrounding
Yeah,
letting go and releasing, even though, you know, the work is there. They don't want to do the work because they rushed into it. And now it's like, you know, it's like there's a subconscious, there's a trauma there. So definitely, you know, when you're talking about this, this is really good to guide people, and it's very informational. It's very, you know, to stabilize, to allow your body to acclimate, to align, to come into alignment, for your body and mind to get the assignment and come into alignment. This is
exactly.
key. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is key. So you feel yourself doing that now, like from your first juice feast, you know, when you were letting go and you were just on juice, and you said you were detoxing and you had a lot more clearing to do. Now it seems like now, Natalie, you have this almost this passion, you know, this purpose and this push that is like propelling you towards prana, and just continuously like being on this wavelength indefinitely. You have this strong push to go in this direction, you said, you know, rather quickly. has there been any mentors? Has there been any, people in this world or even from before that you've read, or anything that it was someone that said? What has kind of inspired you to say, you know what, this is for me. I wanna keep going.
I have only listened to what my guides have told me. I
Okay.
have not had anyone in my 3D reality.
Wow.
I have not had any teachers whatsoever that have been guiding me, because I do believe we don't need a guru. We have our inner guru. We are our own guru. We don't need anyone except ourselves to
Mhm.
guide us. Of course, it can be good to listen to certain teachers if you feel that, but in my case, I felt like I have a path, because I had a few people I was talking with and they were really offensive, or oh, you shouldn't do that, oh, you shouldn't think that you can do that. Many teachers were telling me that, and already there I felt like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna listen to what you're saying.
Right.
What I've noticed when I started like speaking about my spiritual practices to other already more advanced spiritual teachers, they were just telling me, oh yeah, no, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't think that you can do that. And now today when I work with other people and I they come to me and they say, I feel like I have this purpose and I need to do this and this, and I try to explain to them how important you are in this big game that we are in, and I try to encourage them to know how powerful they are. And what I was met with was everyone was just telling me, oh yeah, you shouldn't think so highly of yourself, you shouldn't think that you can do that. I was met with so much negativity about the path that I wanted to take, so I just decided
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to anyone. I'm just going to go with what my spirit team and my ancestors are showing me, and yeah, just listen to my own feelings of what feels good for me and resonating with me.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I would definitely, now knowing what I know now, I definitely would do the same. I don't, really talk to many people about the way that I live today. I just go to the supermarket, I grab my juice and I leave, but nobody asks me, is that all you having? Is that it? Nobody
Mm.
asked me that. I don't plan on telling anybody if they don't ask, and you can feel people's energy when they're really asking, like out of curiosity, or asking out of judgment, out of criticism, out of, they're wondering like, is that safe? Are you, all of that I can kind of feel a lot more now. I'm sensitive to that now versus before I was a little more naive, feeling like the whole world needs to know this. Like, we don't need it. I thought I was going crazy. I was like, am I the only one that sees that all of this is not necessary? Like less is more. I was feeling all of that. So when you have people around you, what is your dynamic today with relationships? Some people, when it comes to breatharianism, when it comes to pranic living, or just living without, so much, they're afraid of being alone because they don't see many people around them doing the same. And a lot of people, like you said, they have their ideologies, their philosophies, and they might feel like, oh, well, can I ever get a partner if he's eating, I'm not eating, or will I feel like I'm depleting around someone who's eating? What is your relationship dynamic with partners today?
It's me, myself, and I.
Yeah. Oh man.
Like, I think it comes to a certain point on your spiritual path that you have to be alone. There's
Yeah.
no like other way. You can have. I have two friends, and they're on the same path as me, so we can openly discuss in the same manner that you and I are doing right now. But if not, it's you lose too much energy because they will not understand. They will come with judgment and projections, and then I will not defend myself, but still that exchange of energy of them, oh yeah, but you can't go without food, like you need food. And that is just their programming and their lack of knowledge that they are saying that, because unfortunately the world looks the way it does because we have not been given the correct way to live, and we do not know of our true potential as humans. So it's really, if you just lose energy when you surround yourself with people that do not understand the path that you are on. And also, the higher you go, the more alone you will become, because the path is getting more and more narrow, and there's less and less people, and they will not understand you, and you don't need to explain. And if you're not on the same vibrational frequency, there's no point if in having those people in your life. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Simply put, I love just how eloquent you're able to illustrate, just like you said, me, myself, and I. Like this is the solitary path. You're finding solace in your own solitude and embracing your silence to get away from the violence, embracing the stillness to get away from the illness. You're really just going
Exactly.
back into the self, with a capital S, self. You're like, this is the best thing for my health. I guess I'm gonna be by myself, So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so does that include
Yeah.
the? Okay, go ahead. Hmm.
Yeah. No, because everything is energy, so you have to be really selective with the energy that you surround yourself with. It's like
Right.
I do my meditations. If I have been talking, like I prefer not to talk with anyone for days,
Mhm.
preferably if I'm about to go into a really deep meditation, because all of that is imprints. The
Mhm.
less energetic imprints I have in my mind from other people, the easier it will be for me to meditate. Like, even when I go out and I go to the shop, I don't make eye contact with anyone, because as soon as you make eye contact with someone, you exchange energy, and then you go and meditate. That exchange of energy, you have to get rid of it before you can reach out to the higher dimensions. So the less energetic imprints you have, the higher you can go.
Right.
This is why when we really want to meditate, we go to the mountains and we go to a temple, because it's the right environment. But if you are in a city, I'm still in a city, it's not the best. But
Mhm.
if I want to do my meditation, I have to be really excluded from the society.
Okay. And when you're talking about energy transmission, and energy imprints, the energetic imprints of other people, of other beings, definitely one of the biggest imprints in my life that I've seen has been kind of like that soul tie or that soul bond connection that can happen through the sexual energy exchange. So does this include the celibacy path as well? Like, it's just celibacy for you on the
Yeah,
spiritual journey?
yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important, both for men and for women, that throughout, I recommend, like, for men, 2 years
Mhm.
minimum without having sacred sexual, like, energy exchange, because it's so detrimental, and you will not able to hold your chi energy as a man to use it to bring up to your third eye, your pineal gland, if you are using it for sex. It's as simple as that. So when we come again to a certain point in our spiritual path, celibacy is a must. Of course, not forever, but for a few years. I think it's vital and incredibly important for both men and for women.
Mhm. And it's such a strong point that you're making, Natalie, because I've heard so many different, sides of the fence when I've even had, conversations with divine feminine. They talk about how, no, this is sacred, this is divine. Like, sex is not evil, sex is not this, sex is not that. Why are you looking at it like it's something that should be shunned or put down or put away? This is our power, this is, but for yourself, it sounds like that desire and that fire, you've like retired from that.
I mean, sex stands for sacred energy exchange, and I would say 95% of the population of our earth are having friction intercourse, but they are not having sacred energy exchange. They think they are having sex, but they are actually not having sex. It's just some friction. But if you are not connecting with the other person and you are not exchanging the breath in a cycle, you're not, you're doing, it's fornication. It's not, you shouldn't be doing it. Like, you should have sex for connection purposes with the person that you love. If not, why should you have meaningless sex? It's, you're giving away your sacred energy, and you are accumulating every single trauma in form of energy from your partner and from whoever they have been with, and it stays with you for weeks. For weeks it stays with you. This is why so many people feel horrible after they have intercourse with someone. Yes, because you just collected all of their demons and whoever they had sex with before. And like, sexual hygiene on a spiritual level is extreme, and we are not aware of it. We're not talking about it. And then we have all of these women that think they are empowered by having casual sex and they're in control over what they're doing. No, they're not. They have been brainwashed into thinking that it's something normal and it should, and it's making them empowered, but it's not. It's taking away their power. With men as well, men should be able to hold their chi energy. They shouldn't not go around feeling the urge to, you know, have sex with everything that moves, basically. And this is again with the pornography that we have, the programming that comes with that, with showing that this is normal already there to reach to higher states of consciousness. You cannot, if you're having sex freely with everyone, you will never reach higher states of consciousness if you are not holding your sacred energy. So I think it's very important, especially now with all these OnlyFans and all of these young girls looking up to all of these OnlyFans models, and this is what is being normalized. It's so detrimental on both men and women of this open sexualized world that we live in. And again, when we are driven by our lower chakras and they are not in balance, we will feel the urge to fuck everything that moves, you know. We will feel the urge to eat everything. It's the same. It all comes from our lower chakra. If we are not connected to the higher ones, we will be operating from the reptilian brain, which is our lower self, and that is not a pretty way of acting. It's not what we were meant to act as.
Right. It's real. It's real,
Yeah,
especially when there's so much higher, like there's like what you put on your story today about our potential, you know, the potential of human beings and our supernatural abilities that we think are so
exactly.
fantastical and so, you know, out there in fairy tale land, but these are our capabilities, and there's really no limitation but our imagination with how far we can go and how high we can rise on the spectrum. And just, oh my goodness, this is such a message right now that you're saying, Natalie, because, you know, even if there's, you know, ladies listening to you at the moment and they are still in the ideology of, well, you know, I'm a free spirit, like it's my body, you know, I should be able to have, like you said, the exchange with whoever I want. And you're kind of talking about this almost like it's kind of going back to the parasitical organisms that we started on in the beginning, that we're contracting these energetic parasites because we're neglecting or neglecting the energy hygiene or the spiritual hygiene of remaining celibate or remaining clean and clear. And, you know, sometimes we do it out of fear, you know, the fear of solitude, the fear of being alone, the fear of the unknown, you know, to go to that zone. So really, when you're speaking about this, what would you say are the big benefits? Because I remember being with some monks and nuns from Myanmar, and they were the ones that taught me a lot of the things on this part of my journey. But one of the nuns, you know, I asked her, like, what is really the big benefit, like the big bonus of being celibate She said, Jerome, people just don't know what they're missing. You know, she said,
Mm.
people, they don't know. I was like, you really don't miss it? You know, like the touch, the sensual, the this, the that. And she was like, they don't know what they're missing. So for yourself, Natalie, if there's a young girl or whatever age she's looking at you, she's listening to you, and she's wondering, well, what am I missing out on? You know, could you speak to that?
Like, I've always been very sexual. Like, I've always been in long relationships. I've never like been around, so to say, but sex was always so important to me. It was like, oh, it's so important in a relationship. Like, oh, I have to have sex every week with my partner. Like, if not, something's wrong. I was so like programmed into this way of being, and I just thought that sex was such an important part in my life and in being in a relationship with someone. But I've realized that it's just a part of the programming. We have to first learn who we are and be in peace with our own energy before we can invite another person into our energy. If we are not whole in ourselves, we cannot be whole with someone else. And people always like, oh, I need to find my other half. No, you need to find wholeness with yourself before you find another person that is also whole. And there's all these people looking for their other half, but they haven't even found themselves yet. So I think it's really important to be by yourself. It's also when you are by yourself that you can hear everything. It's when you invite someone else to be with you, you are not in your own energy. And when you are not in your own energy, again, you cannot reach higher states of consciousness. Maybe if you're younger, you don't want to reach higher states of consciousness, but you want to feel better. And for you to feel the best that you can possibly feel, you need to find wholeness with yourself. And that comes through celibacy. And me, like you said as well, like I don't miss it. Like I'm like, why would I want that?
Yeah.
Like, fine, if I find someone that's like a twin flame or a soulmate further down the line, fine. But if I don't find anyone for 10 years, I am fully fine with that.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't have a single urge in me to be with a man. I,
Wow.
I,
Wow.
I don't feel it. I feel like I need to do the things that I want to do, especially on my spiritual path. And I know that it's completely impossible for me to do those things if I'm in a union with someone. So I want to first do the things that I want to do before I can come into a union with a man. So it's not, I don't even think about it. It's not,
Yeah. It doesn't
it's
cross
not,
your mind. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's not even there. And it's,
Right.
there's just so many benefits of being by yourself in your own energy that you forget, just like they were telling you, you don't miss it because
Right.
there's so much life force energy that you are still getting that is way more fulfilling than having sex with someone.
Thank you for this. Thank you for this because I love, first of all, Natalie, I love your honesty. Just like, just your
Yeah, I'm very
point
honest.
blank, just the bluntness, you know, just the point blank bluntness of your words with the conviction and just the certainty of your lived experience in the moment. We're witnessing this and it rings off of you. It really rings off of your energy frequency and your voice as you're speaking, like your throat chakra is really activated when you're speaking because it's truth. You know, you're not saying something that you're not living. You know, the energy you're giving, you're already
Yeah,
living. So thank you for this because I myself, you know, I was told a long time ago, somebody told me, Natalie, they said, you know, Jerome, the longer you stay alone, like the longer you stay by yourself, the less patience you will have for a relationship. And they said this, and
exactly.
I was like scratching my head. I was like, what do you mean? Now I know what they meant. You know, like I understand now what he meant. And it's just something different when somebody's trying to conceptualize or, you know, logically piece together what is this higher consciousness? What does that mean? Like you said, I thank you for saying that, Natalie. Like some people, that's not their goal. You know, it's not their goal to raise their state of awareness or to open their eyes or to raise their consciousness. They don't have that goal. Some people just want to feel healthy. You know, some people, they're sick, they're feeling ill. The last thing they want to do is raise their consciousness. There's a whole Maslow's of hierarchy of needs that they have to go through all those channels to then, okay, now I feel safe enough to want to raise my consciousness. But you know, same thing as if somebody has never done cocaine and somebody else is saying, you don't know what you're missing, right? But this another person, they've raised their consciousness and they can't give them that feeling. They can't give them what they've already achieved with themselves. It's like you have to do it on your own. You can't really understand what I'm talking about when it comes to raising your consciousness until you raise your consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not about raising your consciousness, it's just about finding your inner peace. And that's what you will when you do not just give away your sexual energy to everyone. And also to think about that you take on all of their traumas with you, and it stays with you, especially as a woman. It really stays with you. Like the human design of the women were not intended to be with multiple men because it takes away from our energy. It takes away even like everything gets collected within us, and sooner or later, I'm referring to the OnlyFans model, especially these, what's her name? There's been a few now lately, they're having sex with like 1,000 men or something like that, or like 100 men in one day. Like that makes you soulless. Yeah, like your soul is being sucked out of you. And they don't understand the detrimental consequences that comes with what they're actually doing. They are being sucked dry of their soul, and it's so horrible to watch. And then young girls are looking up to these women. It's so bad. It's so bad. I can't even express how bad this OnlyFans culture is. It's detrimental for our society on so many levels.
Wow. No, I definitely, you know, I've seen it as well. And also in my life, you know, just I've seen the effect of the transfer of trauma, like the trauma transmission, you know, the trauma transference. And then it's almost like you have to do a trauma transmutation, you know, like you have to transmute this energy that has been latched onto you from, you know, a partner that you, like you said, if it wasn't, you know, with the breath, if it wasn't with intention, if it was just recreation, you know, if it was just fornication, like you said,
Exactly,
that's a
yeah.
lower vibration, the vibration of fornication. So there's a lot of frustration, you know, and just like you said, it was 2 to 3 years that you were detoxing things. I mean, it felt like that sometimes with sexual partners. It was like, I'm still getting over, you know, some things that I might have, you know, that were on my back for a while, but I had to definitely take ownership and, you know, accountability for my actions, even in my ignorance. I had
Mm.
to be responsible, or the responsibility was my response to the ability and the power of choice, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And also another thing that when we say that the man
Mm.
you're having sex with is spiritually inclined and know what is going on through sexual intercourse, they can harness your life force energy and use your life force energy. And this is, many men do this. It comes back to black magic, but they harness the life force energy of the women that they have sex with. You have sex with someone, you look into their eyes, and then you have to be spiritually quite advanced, not advanced, but you have to know what you're doing to be able to do it. But many men do this to women, and then women get so tired, nothing works in their life, the life force energy is being sucked out of them, and the men are using it for their own benefit and gain and investing it into their own businesses. I mean, this is what the secret societies in our society do. They harness the energy of women through sex, and then they use their life force energy to their own benefits, and then they leave the woman completely depleted of energy, and then the woman is like, oh, I don't understand why I'm so tired, nothing's going right in my life. It's because a man has leached onto you and they harnessed in your energy. It's a very real thing, and this is why it's so dangerous, because you don't know who you, like, if you just meet up with someone, you don't know what their bloodline is into. This runs really deep in the bloodlines of what has been going on in generations, and it's a very, like, it happens very, very frequently. I've seen it so much, and it's detrimental.
It sounds monumental, you know? It
Yeah.
sounds like it's just the magnitude of what you just said, Natalie. Like this is the first time we've touched on this topic here. And you know, I'm already getting chills because, you know, like I said, I don't know if I said it before, but I'm a Scorpio. And I know that,
Okay.
you know, I know that we don't like to get into labels, but I definitely have felt an abundance. If I'm being honest, you know, there's been a lot of sexual energy in my life, and I didn't know how to harness it. I didn't know how to guide it, how to control it, or I didn't even know. I didn't even know, you know? So it led to a lot of confusion, and I was looking, you know, just for the solution to where do I channel this? So just in my nature, I have felt that. So the way that I've done it is with creative pursuits, because I feel like all energy is energy. And if it's sexual energy, then let me just channel it into something that's going to take me higher, you know, take me to another level instead of what we're talking about. So it sounds like the sword cuts both ways. Like there's always two sides to every coin. And with you speaking of the leeching, you know, people are being leached and being sucked dry. That sounds like vampirism, like an energy
It
vampire,
is. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it comes down to. It's, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
like Nosferatu, you know, just
Yeah.
like a vampire. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
And
So
it takes quite a lot of energetic work to get rid of these leeches. You have to do several clearings throughout weeks, months, because they can come back, and then you have to cut it not just in this dimension, you have to cut it through any other realm, because they can go into the astral plane and harness your energy through the astral plane. So when you opening up yourself energetically to someone, you are giving permission to them to harness your energy, and many women are not aware of this, and we have a lot of wizards that are very aware of what they are doing.
okay. So just when I thought just when I thought we were done, just when I thought we were done, Natalie, just when I thought we were done, you just pulled me back in. So the astral plane, is this like I've heard these words, the incubus and the succubus.
Succubus, yeah,
Succubus.
yeah,
Is this what you're talking about in the astral
exactly,
realm?
exactly, because even if you're not having sex with that person anymore, when you have sexual intercourse with someone, you create a soul tie. It is there. It's a connection is there. Whatever you like it or not is there, and you have to get rid of it. But most people are not aware that they have just gone into a soul tie with someone when they had sex. And if you do not cut this tie in this dimension and in the higher astral realms, it's still there. So someone that you had sex with 10 years ago can still be sucking your energy.
Okay, okay. I need to, okay. How do we cut that? Because I've been dealing with that, you know, for quite some time. I've definitely, and it's not, you know, it's not very frequent, but every now and then periodically I'll have a dream where I'm like, nah, you know, this is not just a dream.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a
No,
regular dream.
that's someone coming in. Like
Yeah, this is a being.
if that person shouldn't be in your dream, then they have put themselves there.
Whoa.
They, like, when you have, like, in your dream you have sex with a person, or you starting to have sex, they are imprinting into your astral space. You are not supposed to have sex with people in the astral plane. That is someone deliberately trying to take your life force energy. And this can happen with both men and women.
So is there a simple way to cut that cord in the astral?
Like, our voice is our strongest weapon, so you get into a meditative state and you speak it out, and you abolish the cord. It's not just enough to cut the cord, you have to completely abolish it and burn it up. And you have, like, I suggest that you do it through months and months, because it's still there, like energetically it will still be there.
Okay.
So you have to repeat doing it over and over again. And the higher you are, the clearer you are in your meditation. And when you speak this out, the more potent it will be. So you can't just like speak it out. It will not really do anything. You have to get really clear, quite high up. And the more clear you are in your vessel, body, mind, and spirit, the more effective the cut will be.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. This is my next project.
Good.
You've given
Call
me,
back your life force energy. Call it back and
yeah.
purify it through the violet flame. Because when you call back your energy, you're getting back the, not so nice energy. So it's really important for you to say, I purify it before it comes back to me. I purify it through the violet flame, and then it comes back as pure energy.
Okay. Purify before it comes back. Okay.
Yeah.
Natalie. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The class was in session. Class was in session today. We felt the progression today. Thank you for this
Thank you
expression
so much.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you. My goodness. I have homework. You've given me homework now. Like I have so much that I just, this was so nourishing and encouraging for not only myself, but I'm sure so many people here that have listened to you. And if this is their first time tuning into you, Natalie, where should they go if they want any of your offerings, your services, or just to be in touch or in tune with you more? What's the best place they can go to receive that?
My Instagram, you can always get in contact with me on my Instagram. I did have a website before, but it was taken down. So I'm currently working on getting a new link up there, and I will be doing some private coaching sessions. But so far I've been just concentrating on my own journey, and I've had not taken on any students at the moment, but I will be doing that now in the coming months. So just look out on my Instagram, and I will post any like new relevant links there. So, or you can just DM me and reach out, and I will do my best to answer everyone.
Awesome. Awesome. This has been amazing. Your journey is fascinating. It is fascinating. Like every time you talked, I had more questions, and more questions, and it just
Yeah, we
kept
can keep
diving
on
deeper.
going. I feel like we could, like, the energy is so good. We're like vibing so good. We could keep on going for hours, I think.
We'll have to do another one. We'll have
Yeah,
to do a round two.
definitely. Thank you
We'll
so
we'll
much. Thank you
we'll
so much.
definitely make it happen. And enjoy the rest of your day, Natalie. Enjoy.
Yeah, you too, Ashay. Thank you.
All right. Talk.
Bye.
Tusen talk.
Bye. Bye.
Take care.